Gotta say, best story starts out for me, or not the best, but one that was quintessential in my understanding of my relationship with, say, law enforcement, would be I was driving down from New York, where I was going to school in college, down to Virginia, where I'm from. Um, Going down 95, I made this drive thousands of times. And at the time, I was driving a 98 Maxima. A lovely vehicle of mine, which I love so dearly, but unfortunately for me, it must have been the favorite car of a lot of gentlemen who weren't doing, such progressive things. So I'm driving down the road, right lane, going up 65. I always like driving my cruise control on, especially when I'm going through Maryland. So I crossed Delaware, got into Maryland. And if anybody who's driven through Maryland, I'm from Virginia. Driving through Virginia, you can often notice that you have sections between the medians. It's all woods, but you have little cutouts and the police are well hidden. So you being used to driving that way, you're aware of that driving down 95. Maryland's not that way. Maryland is wide open, medians all grass, and you'll see for miles and miles. And I was going over one hill. I see an officer down there, and I'm clearly checked. Every time I see an officer, I check my speed. I'm going the speed limit, of course, and I see other people going lights red. They're hitting their brakes, trying to slow up in time. So I'm sitting there going, oh, well, he ain't catching nobody. I'm still puttering along far right lane. I was actually meeting my father in D.C. He was going to help me fix part of my car. And so keep driving, but I happen to notice in my rearview mirror him pull out. And, I'm thinking he's catching one of the people who just sped by him. And I see him moving right. Now he's behind me, and I'm going, oh, this will be interesting. So lights come on. I pull over to the side. Of course, do all the regular protocols, window down, making sure you turn your radio off, all the standard stuff so that you don't have any kind of issues. And at this point in time, he comes up, hey, sir, how you doing? He starts asking me regular questions. Of course, I'm being as pleasant as possible. And it gets to the point where I'm not volunteering, say, copious amounts. He asks, oh, do you know how fast you're going? I'm going, I'm waiting for you to alert me to these things. I'm just sitting here smiling. I thought you just wanted to say hi. And he was saying something to the effect, license registration, hand that over. And then he starts to then make assertions and assumptions on my behalf. First he's, oh, do you know how fast you're going? I say, yes, sir. Then he says, okay, well, I'll be right back. And he walks back to his vehicle, comes back, gives me my license. But this time he comes back on the other side of the vehicle. Now, at this point in time, I oblige and I put down the other windshield.
The mirror, the window.
Yeah, the other window. And the center console of my car, this was not the newest vehicle, but again, I loved it dearly. The leather had worn off, so you had some crumbling foam, of course, that was around. At that point, he looks at me and he goes, have you been smoking or anything like that? Now, that started changing the tone and tenor of his conversation because, no, sir. And I'm curious to why he assumed something of that nature. At that point, he reaches into the vehicle, scratches away at the area of the foam padding that had been breaking off. And he goes, you sure? I mean, what is this? And I'm going, well, from what I can assert, that is the foam padding of my center console. And from there, he's going, okay, well, and he starts trying to look in the back seat and everything else. Now, it already was a red flag for me that he came inside my windshield, but was over the passenger seat and literally inside my vehicle. But being the gentleman I am, I obliged because I learned early on as a young man in the South, you can disagree with an officer, but certain demographics don't have the viability to disagree the same way, say, other demographics do. So you always stay pleasant. At this point in time, he steps back around, he comes back to the driver's side, and he's like, oh, well, can you join me outside in the back of the vehicle? So, of course, I'm still pleasant, but this is a big red flag. At that point in time, he walks around to the back trunk of my car and begins lifting on the trunk. The spoiler, he kind of pulls up on it. I'm guessing to attempt to see if my trunk was open. Of course it was not. And at this point in time now, I'm very suspicious because his activities seem as if he has an objective. That objective is not it was, I would guess, initially to stop me because if he thought I was speeding or something of that nature. But at this point now, he's fishing. He is what it appears to be.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking me questions coming out of left field, just things that would not have anything to do with our interaction so far. This is supposed to be, speeding.
Yeah.
It was not going that direction. At this point in time, I use my diction, and I don't break my glance with him. I stare pleasantly directly at him, but I don't break. And I make sure that when I'm speaking to him, I'm asserting that I'm being pleasant, but I'm being very aware of everything that's going on, because I don't want to be taken advantage of, and I don't also want to give him the feeling of anything but, being as nice a guy as I
Yeah,
can
of
be.
course.
So as soon as he asked me where am I going, I'm saying going down to meet my father. He asked me where I'm coming from, I'm saying college. He asked me what school, I tell him what school. Then he says, oh, well, you can go back into your car. Now, that was already peculiar to me because, again, this is a state trooper. Meaning, my experience is state troopers, they pull you over, you get the ticket. So I'm sitting back in my vehicle, not too happy about the occurrence, but that's nice I can be. He comes back and he hands me a warning. The warning says that, going over 65. At this point in time, though, it's already been apparent to me that he was looking for anything he could to try to go take things in a different direction because I didn't provide those. He did not. The part that left a bad taste in my mouth, though, is he really wanted to, and the vernacular he was using, he wanted to make it seem like he was doing me a favor by giving me a warning. So for putting me in a situation, in a predicament where he was then trying to take things further than I want them to go, he's now telling me that I'm lucky that he's let me off so easy.
Yeah.
After that, he had some other words that weren't so pleasant, some vulgarities he decided to exchange, and then he made his way. When I opened up, of course, the warning after he walked away, I hadn't pulled off yet, and I sat there and looked at it. I wanted to inquire, how'd I get a warning? But at that point in time, he sped by me and went on about his way. That was one time where I kind of looked up and went, okay, no matter what I was going to do today, I wasn't going to be happy with that kind of occurrence. But I'm pleased that it went the way it did, because I also know how easily it could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
And how many times it, for a lot of guys, has gone the other way. That's one story.
You have one more story?
I've got a number of stories.